All right, welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Scott Adamson, and if you've been following along at all with us, we're building out our brand new 2019 4x4 144 Sprinter van. So if you haven't been following along, check out some of our other videos where I've really been documenting everything from the start of the project and going into as much detail as possible as I can. So be sure to check out those other videos. And if you're looking for an even more detailed breakdown, I am doing my best to build a build guide. I'll put the link right here that you can check out where I've documented everything I did on my first van, which was a 170 Sprinter van, and I'm updating it with new information on everything that I'm doing to convert this new 144. So let's roll that intro, and then I'm going to go over the sort of the biggest changes with the 144 and why I'm building this van. So see you on the other side. So if you're familiar with my old van, you're probably asking yourself, why is he building a new van? What's wrong with it? That van seems beautiful. It's amazing. And that is probably one of the biggest questions I've been getting lately is, why are you building a new van? And I don't have an amazing answer for that. I've been living out of this past van for years now. I loved it. It's a great van. But basically, after learning how I use the space and how I travel around and the things that I need, and what I really need to prioritize, I basically figured out that I think I can get away with a smaller van. I can downsize even more. And so for myself, it's a bit of a challenge to go from the 170 down to the 144 and see if I can get everything from the 170 into the 144 and have it as functional as possible. It kind of seems crazy that, I started out downsizing to a 170 and that seemed like a huge task. And then after 2 weeks of being in the van, I actually shipped boxes of stuff back home that I just didn't need and I'd over-prepared. And now I still find myself, after years living in the van, that I have things I carry around that I've never used that I could probably do without. So, short answer is I'm just challenging myself to see if I can pare down to a 144. I've learned a lot over the past few years and thinking I can take that knowledge and sort of build my ultimate, van that is specific for my needs and what I need out of the van. And if I'm being honest, I just like these kinds of projects. They're fun. I like working with my hands. I like doing these kinds of things. So it's something for me I enjoy. So I haven't had a project like this for a while. So for me, part of it is just having something that I can work on that I enjoy and, test my skills, challenge myself a bit. So sort of the next question I get from people, after, why are you building a new van is to, what are the biggest things that you're changing in this new van from your last one? People are wondering, what's the layout going to be like? Are you going to have a toilet, shower? What's your bed situation? So I'm going to go over sort of what kind of the main things that I'm changing in this van build are going to be from the 170 to my new 144. So the biggest thing obviously is that I'm going from the 170 down to the 144. The reason for doing that is, as I mentioned before, just to challenge myself, because I do think that I can get away with the 144. The 140, even though with the 170 I've had no problems, traveling around and it being too big and parking, the 144 is just a lot smaller. It's about 4 feet shorter, or at least that's what I keep telling everybody. I haven't measured. I think it's 4 feet. But that 4 feet is going to just make it easier all around. It's going to be more maneuverable, easy to park, and I think just make life overall easier for me. It's just Ellie and I in the van, and therefore we can get away with a little bit less space. Some couples that travel around, they like the more room that the 170 provides, but for me, I think the 144 is going to be plenty with the right layout. The next biggest change in the van is I am going from a two-wheel drive vehicle to a 4x4 version. Again, I've talked about this many times. For the majority of people, the two-wheel drive vehicle is amazing and the 4x4 upgrade is not required. I've taken my van all over and I've never had any problems with the two-wheel drive van. But because I had the ability to do so, I wanted to get the 4x4. It just gives me a little bit of peace of mind. I can push things a little bit further, which may or may not be a good thing. I was excited to go with the four-wheel drive van. And you're going to kind of have to make that decision if it's something you need or not. But just keep in mind, I've managed for years with the two-wheel drive van and it's done amazing. If you have good tires, air your tires down, and you just sort of know what you're doing, you'll be impressed with some of the places you can get. Mind you, it's not going to get everywhere, but it is going to get you a lot of places that you didn't think you would be able to get. Another sort of general theme that you might be noticing if you've been following along with this van build is I'm trying to keep the weight down as much as possible. Many people, when they DIY van build, probably one of the biggest things they disregard is they think that, oh, because these vans are built to carry around parcels and cargo and construction equipment, it doesn't matter what I put in the back of it, it's going to be able to handle all that weight. But in reality, that couldn't be further from the truth. As you start to build out these vans, you start to get closer to the GVW, which is, I believe that stands for the gross vehicle weight restriction. And that's sort of the maximum that the manufacturer says these vehicles can haul around. And you'd be surprised at just how fast you get close to that limit. You know, full of water, I think it's about 8 pounds a gallon, fuel, and all of your, all your gear, bikes, food, storage, and you get very close to that GVW very quickly. I was lucky in my last build, I didn't really put much emphasis or thought on it, but I was very close to the GVW. So in this build, I'm doing everything I can to implement some weight saving things. So one of the first things I'm doing is I'm building out of extruded aluminum. Extruded aluminum, it's very strong, durable, and depending on how you do the construction with the extruded aluminum, it can be a significant weight savings. I'll probably go into a whole video about my 80/20 cabinet framing. I do have a few of them that I've started, and I'm starting to learn more and more about it. But basically, it allows you to build a skeleton without having to, you don't have to put a floor on your cabinets, you don't have to put a back on some of your lower cabinets. And I think I'm going to be able to save probably 250 to 300 pounds just in my construction design by using the extruded aluminum over the traditional Baltic birch cabinet framing I used in my last build. So weight savings is a huge one. The next thing is I'm going with that kind of continues along with the weight savings is I'm switching from AGM batteries to lithium ion batteries. And I'm going to be using 3 100 amp hour Battleborn lithium batteries. The weight savings of lithium is amazing. They've come a long ways since, I built my first van in cost, so they are a lot more affordable now. But in my last van, I used AGMs. I had 2 335 amp hour 6-volt batteries wired together to give me 12 volts. But since they're AGMs, I really only had about 100 to 150 amp hours of usable battery. And those batteries, so 150 amp hours of usable, they weighed, I think it was 100 pounds each per battery. So I had 2, so that was 200 pounds. Whereas on my new build with the Battleborn batteries, I have 300 amp hours of usable, not quite, but you can use about 90%. So it's much closer to, so I've got well over 100 more amp hours of usable storage, and I'm less than half the weight. I think the Battleborn batteries are around 25 to 30 pounds. I'll look that up, but it's amazing how light they are. Lithium batteries is a huge weight savings. The one downside of lithium is you can't store them outside the vehicle. A lot of people like to mount their batteries on the underside, and lithium doesn't handle the cold as well. But with my system, they're inside the van. The van's always heated, so I'm not really worried about the temperatures with the lithium batteries. And the next biggest change that I'm making with this van is kind of my heating and hot water system. On my last van, I used an Airtronic system. I used the Espar D2, and I used an electric hot water tank to heat my hot water. So basically the way the Espar works, if you're not familiar with it, is it has a secondary fuel pump that actually pulls diesel directly out of the factory diesel tank, and it uses that diesel to ignite the Espar unit, and it blows hot air into the van, hence an Airtronic heater. So all it's doing is heating hot air, and it's pumping that hot air into the van. The Espar D2 was a great unit. I did have some issues before I had the high altitude kit, and you do have to familiarize yourself with the unit and how to properly run it and clean it and make sure it doesn't get all sooted up, because they can be very frustrating if you're not using it properly. But all in all, the Espar D2 was a great unit on my van. I never had any major problems that I couldn't fix. But on this van, I did decide to go with kind of the Cadillac, the luxury unit, and I went with the Van Life Tech in-floor radiant heat system, which also provides an on-demand hot water. So without getting into too much details in this video, in the simplest terms, I'm using a Espar hydronic heater. So instead of just heating the air, it's actually heating a glycol loop. And that glycol loop is running through the floor, giving me radiant in-floor heat. That heat, the biggest difference is instead of just heating the air in the van, I'm now heating everything in the van. So, all of the cabinets to touch should be, warm instead of freezing cold. The floor will be warm, and it's all radiating from the, bottom up. And that's kind of the biggest thing in a van is it's a small space, so all of the hot air would immediately go to the ceiling with an Airtronic, leaving the floor a little bit cooler. And the other thing which I'm super excited about, which is the on-demand hot water. So the way it works is when you want hot water, you turn on the system, and it runs the glycol through a flat plate heat exchanger. And I'm not a wizard on this, but basically your glycol pumps one way, and then on the top you have your water that comes across, and they go in opposite directions. So the glycol transfers heat to the water, and so as long as you're pumping glycol through that heat exchanger, it's going to be transferring heat to the water system. So they're two separate closed loops, but they come into contact in the heat exchanger. There's a transfer of heat, and there it gives you, essentially limitless hot water. Your only limit is how much water storage capacity you have and how much you're using of it. So that's kind of the next biggest upgrade is with my whole heating system on this van. Again, it is the luxury Cadillac. I think it's only really recommended if you do spend a lot of time in colder climates. I do a lot of snowboarding and stuff like that, so I do enjoy using my van in these winter climates. If you're building a van and you're planning on getting away from winter and you're more of, chasing the sun, snowbird style, I don't think it's probably worth it investing in this kind of system. But if you are a snow chaser and you love the kind of colder climates, I do think this is something that's worth checking out. It's super efficient, it's super integrated, and Troy over at Van Life Tech's done an amazing job putting this kit together. So yeah, I hope you've been having fun following along with the van build. I hope that answered some of the questions you have about why I'm building a new van and putting myself through this torture again. Again, we do have our website, which is thewonderful.co. And on there, I've got my van build guide, as well as sort of tons of useful van life tips that I just try to curate as they come up and just get them all in one place so people have a resource that they can go and check out, interact with. So be sure to check that out. And if you're enjoying these videos we're putting together, I'm having a ton of fun with this YouTube channel. And it would mean a ton to me if you took the time to just sort of click that subscribe button, and that way you'll be notified every time I post a new video. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one.